All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone back for our wonderful program this evening. It's so nice to have all of you here. I'm so grateful that you all could make it and you could join us for this great program that we are going to be enjoying this evening. We have a wonderful little next 45 minutes planned for you, and I think it's going to be really informative and really interesting. So we'll do about 45 minutes of content tonight, and then there'll be time for about 15-20 minutes of Q&A. So feel free to jot down your questions or save your questions. I know that Jana will be happy to answer them. So I'd like to introduce you to our wonderful presenter this evening, and I have been practicing her name, but I'm probably still going to butcher it slightly, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and she can correct me accordingly. So tonight we welcome Jana Meisarosh. Is that even close?
It's
Close.
close.
It's close. All right, you say it properly for us. You say it properly for
All
us.
right, Jana Mazurkiewicz Meisarosh.
There we go. Beautiful. It's a beautiful name. And she is a PhD candidate in the Slavic Department at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. She's working on her dissertation on Yiddish theater in Communist Warsaw. Originally, she is from Poland and she holds a Master of Arts degree in Polish Philology and Jewish Studies from the University of Wrocław. Is that close? Okay, great.
Yes,
At least I got
Wrocław.
one. At least I got one right. Jana is not only a practicing academic, but also an active theater artist and critic. She's an actor, director, playwright, and producer of Yiddish theater. In October of 2017, she moved to San Diego and she launched the Yiddish Arts and Academics Association of North America, also known as YAAANA. And she's recently relocated to La Paz, Mexico. So I want to welcome her. We are so glad we'll give you the old Zoom round of applause, but we are so glad to have you this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spotlight you for everyone, and I am going to let you take it away. I'll keep an eye. If we have some late comers, I'll let them in the meeting. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Shalom Aleichem. Thank you so much for your flexibility and joining us late. I'll try to share a screen and let me know if you all see it. If you can hear me, if I should speak louder, also please let me know. So I always start with this quote. You can take a Jew out of a shtetl, but you cannot take a shtetl out of a Jew. And it's a quote by a famous Yiddish writer, Shalom Aleichem. I'm speaking to you from Mexico, and I'm bringing my shtetl with me, in my neshama, in my soul, in my heart. And I think that happens with a lot of Jewish people, wherever they're bringing their Yiddishkeit, their roots, their connections, that's where their community be, and it will last. And that's hopefully, in case of Yiddish, also the case, that the language will persevere and not die. Okay. And now something is happening to my presentation. Let me really share. Today is the day of technical difficulties. May I send it to you, Hillary, if it's gonna work for you?
Of course, absolutely.
Because that's might, I don't know what happened.
Sure, I'm happy to. Let me.
All right.
No problem. It's okay. We've all been there. As they say, technology is wonderful when it works.
Right. All right. So I send you a link and it's accessible
Okay.
to all.
I have
And
my.
also the audience members can
Okay.
use it.
Okay. Let me get, and did you put it in the chat? Okay, perfect. All right.
It's working for me if I'm not sharing the screen, but once I
But
share
once
the
you start
screen,
sharing, it doesn't want to.
I can try again, and just in case.
Okay. You try again while I get to the chat.
Just in case you have it.
And
You see,
I
it's not doing it.
can download it and then I can just share it.
I think you can just use the link, but let me.
I got it. Okay, give me a second. Me.
Just out of curiosity, please put in the chat if anybody in your family speaks Yiddish, or if somebody is from the old country. Yes? So you can put it in the chat and we can talk later after also. I'm sharing the second slide just not to waste time. When you're ready, Hillary, you can
Sure.
let me know.
Go ahead. I can pull it up. I need to see if I can figure out how to put it in presentation mode, because it doesn't want to let me download it. It says there's an error when I try and download it. So, you go ahead and talk about the second slide, and I'm going to play with this on my end while you are
right.
discussing that.
Yeah. So what is Yiddish? It's a very, very loaded question, and people want the simple answer. So this is the simplest I can give after many, many years of doing that. It's a Germanic fusion language. Fusion language, it means it fuses different languages together. And we'll be talking about which languages and why those languages in particular. But it has elements of Hebrew, Aramaic, Slavic languages. And as I mentioned before, Jewish people bring the language and culture with them no matter where they go. And even there are some English or Yinglish words in Yiddish, just like boychik is one that is out and about on the Yiddish street right now. So here you see pictures. Some of you might know the TV series of Shtisel on the left, and on the right side is how my living room looks like right now, but after removed. But this is a Yiddish Book Center volunteer trying to sort out the Yiddish books. So I'll just be doing this. I'll click in and out because I don't know how else to solve this.
So I can share from my end now.
Okay. Okay, let's try.
Was able to download it as a PowerPoint. So I think I can share, and then I'll just advance the slide as you tell me.
Okay. Well, we'll see. PowerPoint might be a little messed up.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see.
we'll see. So this is a PDF. So the PowerPoint, I think the PDF is okay, and I think I got the size right, so everybody can see it.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
All
But
right.
you'll see many more slides. You'll see something like 50 slides.
Okay. So, well, I think
we're skipping this. We're skipping this.
Okay. Okay.
That's
So
why
you
I
tell
think.
me. Yeah, whatever you want to do, it's perfectly fine. So do you
Yes, so
want to
let's
share
talk.
from your
Yes,
side?
this one is good. Well,
Okay.
let's see how it goes.
Okay.
So, where was Yiddish born? A lot of people associate Yiddish with Eastern Europe, but it was in fact born on the border of France and Germany in this yellow section. I actually have been there with a bunch of people, was it 20 years ago, in these tiny little towns, Colmar, Mulhouse, and there are still Yiddish speakers there. And they speak very old Yiddish that is unrecognizable to contemporary Yiddish speakers. So Yiddish was born there in the 10th century, and this region is called Alsace and Ashkenaz in some Jewish texts. And this Old Yiddish, Alt Yiddish, had elements of Laas, Jewish French dialect. So you might know the word chulent, which means basically cook slow, cook long. And that's one of the oldest Yiddish words that we know. And it comes from this ancient dialect of Laas. So let's go to the next slide. Yes. So this is the first printed Yiddish sentence we found. It's from the 13th century. It's a blessing found in Machzor, in Worms, in a town in Germany. And it's from a prayer book. So I'll read it to you, and it will not sound to you like Yiddish at all, again, because it's very old Yiddish from the 13th century. Gut Tag im Betrage, sever dis Machzer in Beschachnes Strage. So blessed shall be the one who respectfully carries a prayer book. And this is what it means. All right, let's go to the next slide. So what happened? Yiddish was thriving in up to the 13th century-ish in that region between Germany and France. But then a lot of things happened. One thing, outbreaks of anti-Semitism in the region of by the Rhine River and in France. So you see, for instance, the image that survived from those times. 500 Jewish people hide in a tower in a town in the southern France as crusaders set it on fire. So crusades really, you know the history. It was one of the reasons why Jewish people left Western Europe and came to the East. And let's go to the next slide. And that's a second reason, maybe not many people know or associate it with that flood of refugees towards Eastern Europe. There was a big plague. Of course, we know about the plagues because we recently had one. And this one was worse. So from the 14th century, it was noticed that Jewish people didn't die as often as non-Jewish people. And as we know right now, it has to do with the rituals of cleansing hands. But back then, Jewish people were accused of poisoning the wells of Christians, doing some witchcraft, and those who survived left Western Europe because together with Crusades, it was already too much for them, obviously, and they traveled east. And this is why Yiddish acquired Slavic linguistic elements. So we'll talk about Eastern Europe right now. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, we can skip this one because, as I told you, there will be some problems with a new layout. But we talk about the two rulers, famous rulers of Eastern Europe. What happened? Because what do? You have a big amount of refugees coming. How do you handle that? Do you let them in? Do you not let them in? It's a common problem in human history. So we'll talk a little bit about these two rulers. One, Casimir the Great from Poland, and second one, Catherine the Great, Russia. So Casimir the Great has a very interesting romantic story that he was in love with a Jewish woman called Esther. And some people say this is why he allowed Jewish people to come to Poland, because of her. She influenced him, and she basically created this beginning of Jewish life in Poland. Of course, it's just a legend, but apparently the person really existed. We don't know about the relationship that much, but there is an old tenement house that stands by the main market in Krakow that the king presented to Esther. So there is a historical trace of that relationship. And in fact, he was a very interesting ruler who was proactive, and he thought Jewish people would help Polish economy. So he allowed them to settle in big cities, right? Krakow, for instance, where he resided. That was the capital of Poland back then. Catherine the Great also allowed Jewish people to come in, but for different reasons, and she had different methods of settling them. So she thought that if she allows them to come to big cities, there will be an economical threat to existing businesses and existing people. So she settled them in small towns to build them up, to not let them disappear. And they became like a middleman between aristocracy and peasants, sort of middle class. And yes, some of them settled in big cities like Moscow, but they had to pay much higher taxes. So basically, Catherine the Great created this pale of settlement where Jewish people lived for a very, very long time, until all the anti-Semitism got out of control in the 19th century. And of course, we know what happened later. So let's go further. So what is this shtetl that we're talking about? It means little town, and it came from the word Stadt, city, which in German and in Yiddish means town. You add a letter L, shtetl, and you make it a little town. So that's what it means. And in Eastern Europe, that was where the majority of Jewish people lived, as I explained a second ago why. And here you have some images. For instance, Marc Chagall painted shtetls, so you have these common associations with it. It's not necessarily a village, because as I explained, Jewish people lived in small towns, So what's the difference between a shtetl and a village? Village is more about farming. Jewish people were not experts in farming. Jewish people were experts in trade, and they ran the inns. So they handled different businesses. They had different role in the society, and they had contact both with the peasants and with the aristocracy, but they belonged to neither. Right? They were in between in these shtetls. So let's go to the next one. Let's see what people read in shtetls. So one type of literature was religious literature. Cenne urene or cenerene, we don't even know how to pronounce it. Some people say cenerene, some people cenne urene. It was known as women's Bible, and it was simplified Bible for the women, and they could read it. They would learn about what is good behavior, what's moral or immoral, and they would read it on Shabbos and holidays when their husbands were in the synagogue praying. So let's go to the next one. But there was also non-religious literature. This book, in fact, was the most popular in Yiddish history. And it is a book that is like a romance, except everything is Yiddishized. So instead of knights, King Otter, you have Moishele, and you have Rivkale. Everything is Yiddishized. And this was a total hit. People, 10 families would share one copy of the book. And this one was the first non-religious book on the Yiddish market from the 16th century. It's another interesting story connected to this book. Some of you might know the expression Bobe Meise, which we say the grandma's tale. Some people think it's Bobo, Bovo. Again, we don't know how to pronounce the title, like we have many old Yiddish stories. That it came from this, that it was Bobo, Baba, Meise, nonsense. Because of course, whoever was connected, like more to non-masses, like people look down on that book too, right? It's a book for the masses. So it's an interesting piece of literature for sure. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Here we're gonna just briefly touch on it because there are so many ways to pronounce Yiddish, and people argue which is better or worse, which is the right Yiddish, wrong Yiddish, but there are different dialects. So Western Yiddish died out almost completely because Jewish people left Western Europe, as I explained, and whoever stayed, they assimilated to such a degree that they almost lost Yiddish. Jewish people in Germany were very Germanized, and the Haskalah came, so the Enlightenment movement, and they didn't have such rich history of shtetls, right? And there was Eastern Yiddish, where Yiddish really thrived in Eastern Europe, the Litvish, the Polish, and the Voliner. So there are different cultures, different foods, different rituals connected to all these three different dialects. And the differences are in the vowels. So some people say good, and some people say git. And you'll hear it a lot when you listen to the songs, for instance. So let's go to the next one. This is the map. It's confusing. But it's just the most simplified version. So we just see the yellow Western Yiddish, and then you see Ukrainian Yiddish in the orange, right? The Lithuanian green, and then blue is Polish Yiddish. And I'll just touch upon two main differences. People know the Litvakes and the Galicianer, right? So Lithuania was a house of Yiddish scholarship, and Vilna was called Yiddish Oxford. And then you have Ukrainian part where Yiddish theater was born, where wineries were, and from where most of the Yiddish songs and Yiddish theater comes from. So there are lots of cultural differences and cultural clashes there in the little Yiddish world that we're talking about. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Here also very briefly, because Yiddish theater was born in Romania, in the theater, in the wineries, there was one dialect that was specifically designed for theater, right? So the actors could communicate with each other, and so they would speak one kind of Yiddish on the stage, and it wouldn't get confusing. And then let's go to the next one. And Yiddish Oxford had its own dialect, standard Yiddish, designed for academia. And it stayed a little bit until like this until now, because all the dictionaries, all the textbooks that you would study from are written in this Yivo Yiddish, standard Yiddish. So like any other language, at some point, scholars wanted to standardize it, and they were arguing which Yiddish makes more or less sense. And this one was chosen for academia. So when this big Yiddish institute was created, Yiddischer Wissenschaftlicher Institute, Yiddish Scientific Institute, YIVO, maybe some of you know it, it's in New York right now. It was established in Vilna, Yiddish Oxford, in 1925, and then it was moved with great effort to New York City in 1940 during the war. So people who were responsible for this relocation of the materials were called the Papierbrigade, the paper brigade. And it's a crazy story how they managed to bring some of these Yiddish documents, books, to New York during the war. But that's a topic for a different lecture. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So you probably heard Yiddish was called bad names, right? It was called jargon, barbaric, vulgar, because it had low status in the society. Until the 20th century, when there was a big conference in Czernowitz, the first international conference about the topic was, which language is the national language of the people? Is it Hebrew or is it Yiddish? And people were arguing back and forth, but Yiddish won. Yiddish won because of the numbers. More people spoke Yiddish than Hebrew, and they did not necessarily know how to read in Yiddish, but they could speak it. And also Yiddish was called Mama Loshen, right? The language of the mother, because the mother would talk to kids at home in Yiddish when the father was in the synagogue. And that's why it was the language of home, and it won back then in 20th century. It won with Hebrew, and it was declared as the national language of Jewish people. And that started this whole wave of elevating the status of Yiddish slowly. All right, let's go to the next slide. Here we very briefly talk about this Yiddishism. What is Yiddishism? It's a movement that focuses on advocacy for Yiddish culture, caring for the language. So we treat it seriously. We don't treat it as a dialect. We don't treat it as a jargon, and we recognize it. So people can study Yiddish, to speak it, and also to understand, to read the cultural texts. So here, for those of you who are interested, there's more information. Mordechai Lifshitz was called the first goal-oriented language reformer for Yiddish. And then there were other organizations, right? Like the YIVO that I mentioned, and Bund. Bund was a socialist organization, because it was noticed that it helps that the workers speak Yiddish. So then it became a big movement of the workers, Yiddish-speaking workers in 19th century in Lithuania, Poland, and Russia. But that's a lot of details here, so like we can go back and go further. And the term Yiddishland is an old term also. It was coined around that time and was popularized by a person who came from Romania, became an American Yiddish scholar, linguist, Max Weinreich. And he described this culture of shtetls, like Eastern Europe. He called it Yiddishland. And this term lives on, except right now, basically it means the Yiddish culture, wherever it is, and we call it Yiddishland. So here you have pictures. As you see, most shtetls don't look like villages. I think we got our view of a shtetl corrupted by Fiddler on the Roof. Because shtetls, the main thing about the shtetl was a marketplace, or a long street with businesses on both sides of it. And this is how Jewish life looked like and before the war. All right, let's go to the next one. So why is Yiddish an endangered language? Some things are obvious. Of course, in Europe, that's the Holocaust. But in the USA and in other places, Canada, for instance, it was more of the process of Americanization of the newcomers, right? Who come off the boat and they want to be assimilated because, you know, I can totally understand it now that we moved to Mexico, and I'm pushing my daughter to speak Spanish so the kids wouldn't laugh at her when she's at school. And I think it's a process that every immigrant in any country goes through, right? You want to get assimilated, to make your life easier and the life of your children and grandchildren. So you forget about your culture sometimes. And this happened definitely in the US. And there were also laws, anti-Semitic laws, like where we were based in San Diego, in La Jolla, Jewish people were not allowed to buy a house until 1964. So there was a gentleman's agreement. I heard the same things about Miami and other desirable locations by the ocean. So there were lots of factors why Yiddish was not necessarily thriving in the new country, right? Except for religious circles. But again, I'm simplifying the history just to show some basic historical factors. And then in Israel, pre-state Israel and modern Israel, Yiddish was marginalized because of the enforcement of modern Hebrew. So that was the language that won in Israel. There were debates which language should be the national language of Israel. And Hebrew won because there were people coming from all over the world, not just Eastern Europe. And there was a will to accommodate the Sephardim, also the Jewish people from other countries. But also there was this looking down upon the victims of Holocaust and not wanting to be a victim once again. So a willingness to create a society of soldiers, not of scholars. So there are lots of interesting cultural factors why Yiddish didn't make it so much in modern Israel. All right, let's go to the next slide. So who speaks Yiddish today? Hillary, you'll tell me how much time we have. But
Okay, you're good. You're good. You got like
yeah.
20 minutes, give or take. So you're doing
Okay, so because I would like to talk a little bit about the contemporary days.
sure.
I'm rushing.
You can tell me anytime that you want to skip to another far ahead, and I'm happy to do it.
Right, because in my format, the slides are already skipped. In your format, it shows
Exactly. Right,
everything.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's okay. No worries.
All right, so Yiddish today. We have two circles of Yiddish speakers. One is religious circle, like we see in big cities, in New York, in London, for instance. Mostly big cities have religious communities where people still speak Yiddish, and they speak Yiddish because it's their tradition, because they spoke Yiddish before. It's not that they are Yiddishists, right? That they choose Yiddish, but because they don't question it. That's the language of the home, and that's it. So, and the second circle, we can go, is the academic circle. Also pretty hermetic. And here there is a choice. We speak Yiddish because we choose to speak Yiddish. We don't want it to die. Some people learn from scratch. Some people I don't know how many families in the world there are that speak Yiddish. In terms of secular people, maybe 5. That's how many I counted. But they make this conscious, very difficult choice to teach their kids Yiddish. It's not simple at all. And this is the other circle of people, right? So let's go to the next slide. And this is what I'm talking about. So there are certain organizations that help, like YIVO, we mentioned before YIVO. Some of you know about the Yiddish Book Center. And there are others that help promote Yiddish so it does not go bye-bye forever. Let's go further. So why are people attracted to Yiddish? And what helps the language not to die? First thing is the music. I think the music is the major factor why Yiddish comes out of these two hermetic circles, right? From religious and from academia. It comes to meet ordinary people, meets people can hear it on YouTube, and it even non-Jewish people know klezmer, so that helps a lot for Yiddish to survive into this century. There is also Yiddish theater and movies, even Netflix, as we mentioned before. So popular culture overall helps Yiddish in our century. Yiddish is spoken and taught at the universities. There are lots of universities that teach it. I learned at the University of Michigan, actually, but their program is still standing strong. But of course, there are universities in New York, and I'm gonna give you a full list later if you want. Even in Poland, I think there are now 3 universities that teach Yiddish, so it's going strong. I think if somebody wants to learn Yiddish and doesn't know where to begin, the best way is to go to Yiddish summer schools. There are lots of them. A lot of people go to Poland because it's the cheapest one to Warsaw. But if you really want to immerse yourself, there is this very intensive course at the YIVO, but it's extremely nerdy. And it's for people who really, really want to become Yiddishists and in a full-on way. But there is also one in Berlin and one in Paris and one in Brussels and in Tel Aviv, and they're all over the place. And why I would recommend to start with that is because it's an environment where you can hear spoken Yiddish. And there are even kids that speak Yiddish there. So it's very pleasant, and you learn much faster because you're surrounded by it. And the same with Yiddish summer schools. There are a couple of them actually currently happening. The one is run by a workman circle, and one by Jugendruf, 2 organizations in New York, and they have completely different methods of running it. So the Jugendruf is more religious; they have Shabbat and all these rules. Food is kosher, and then the workman circle, they don't even light a candle for Shabbat. The candles for Shabbat are completely secular. So it's very interesting to compare these 2 camps. We're talking about Yiddish, but it's not one culture. It's many cultures, and it manifests itself in these summer programs, for instance. And there are Yiddish festivals. Europe is full of Yiddish festivals. In Poland alone, there are 16 Yiddish festivals in the summer. So it's a big thing. And it really helps brings Yiddish to people who would otherwise not know what that is. Because it's a big problem for us, I think, that yes, Jewish people recognize Yiddish, but once you get out of your Jewish bubble and you ask people, it's so confusing. What is Yiddish? What is Hebrew? Who speaks what? It's not that simple to explain because it's not something that kids learn at school or it's in history books necessarily, accessible for non-Jewish people out there. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And that we can skip because it's about Mexico. And we don't have time for that. But yes, where we live, there is also a presence in, okay, here we can go to Yiddish-speaking families. So this is Schechter family. Some people jokingly call it the Schechter Mafia because they did so much for Yiddish and they guard it so much. They teach their kids, and it's been going on for a century now. They live in New York, and the whole family does a lot for Yiddish. You know the translation of Harry Potter into Yiddish, maybe? That was done by a family member. Basically, everything that you see in the United States that has to do with Yiddish, it will have Schechter family behind the scenes, one way or another. All right, let's go to the next slide. And there are other ways to promote Yiddish. For instance, my favorite way is to promote it through paintings. So we encountered this lovely woman, Miriam Liebhaber, and I want to promote her anywhere I go because she's amazing. She is an architect by profession, and she paints forgotten shtetls and cities. And her family is from Poland, but then there was this chapter of history in the 30s when a lot of Jewish people escaped to Mexico City, and her family did the same, and she grew up there, but she clearly didn't forget her Yiddishkeit. She grew up in a Yiddish-speaking house. And as you see, she's pretty popular among non-Jewish and Jewish people alike. So that's another way to promote Yiddish through paintings. Okay, we can go to the next. And then we can skip because these are, yes, but if you're interested, these are the universities in the United States that teach Yiddish: Columbia, Harvard, Texas, in Austin. And I heard that class is particularly popular with people from Asia. Yes, because for some people from Asia, Jewish people are kind of like an example how to settle in a new environment. And I've heard it from other people who visited our organization. A lot of couples, the wife would be Chinese and the husband would be Jewish, and they go along very well because the focus is the tradition, the family, the similar values, and the wife sometimes will be more into Yiddishkeit than the husband because for her it would be interesting and fascinating because the history of the immigration of Jewish people and people from Asia to the United States is pretty similar when you think about it. So I already mentioned Michigan, there's Philadelphia too, in University of Pennsylvania, California, and Stanford. These are some of these universities. Okay, we can go down. We already talked about the dialects. And these are the Yiddish courses in different places in the world. So Germany has a couple, right? Heinrich Heine University, Düsseldorf, Trier and Trier, and then my university, University of Wrocław, where I learned, and Jagiellonian in Krakow and Warsaw, Lund in Sweden. And I don't know if you know that Yiddish is one of the national languages of Sweden because there was such a big wave of immigration of Jewish people in 1968 that they, by law, had to make it a national language. And in fact, my organization is now doing some kind of a program with Swedish TV about Yiddish that will be shot in New York. So there are connections between Sweden and Yiddish, and these connections are very strong and very supported by the government. Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, and Toronto in Canada. So these are examples of these universities that support Yiddish. Okay, let's go. And we talked about summer Yiddish language programs. So there are some in New York City, Tel Aviv, Canada, Warsaw, Berlin, Weimar, London, Brussels, Paris, Strasbourg. So you have quite a list to choose from. I highly recommend it. Okay. And these are the summer programs I was talking about, like Yiddish Week. It's a very interesting one, in fact, because here the rules are that you start the program and they start the program with, this is the last sentence in English. And from that moment on, you are looked down upon if you speak a word of English, and it's supposed to be a total immersion in Yiddish. A very old program run by the Schechter family. All right, let's go to the next one. And this is the other one I was talking about, the Workman's Circle. program on the other side of the lake with different rules and different traditions and more secular and more English is spoken at that camp. So that's better for beginners. Yeah. As you see, both are very popular, lots of people joining those and being very excited about those. Okay, we can go further. And there is also a Yiddish farm founded in 2010 in upstate New York by some members of the Schechter family, where people learn how to farm and learn also some Yiddish along with farming. Yeah. And Yiddish Book Center in Amherst, Massachusetts, they focus on rescuing Yiddish books. And it is a real issue. The same with our organization. We are given a lot of Yiddish books that people want to throw away in the trash. And there are so many of them, you really have to find the right environment for them so they wouldn't get lost. Okay, we can go further. And there are Yiddish resources. So Duolingo, there is a problem with Duolingo because the intention that the creators of Duolingo had was to build a bridge. In my opinion, it's impossible to build that bridge between extremely religious Orthodox and secular. So they mixed all the dialects together to make everybody happy. And the result is everybody's unhappy, other than the people who have no clue and they're just learning, and they think it's really Yiddish. But what they are getting is a mishmash of dialects, which is maybe not the best thing, but better than nothing. There is no perfect way to do it. And of course, there is Yiddish press. The forward does not exist in print anymore, but it exists online. Affenschwell exists in print once a month. It's a literary magazine that people can order online. And there are other magazines, Ingeweb and Pack and Träger. These are two in English about Yiddish. And there is religious Yiddish press and very interesting the publication, Birobidzane Stern, which is in Russia. And they still have a language newspaper there. Okay, we can go further. And there are new Yiddish dictionaries being created, including the comprehensive one that has all the dialects and that they could put in it. So it's pretty impressive. Okay, we can go further. There is Yiddish theater. Probably some of you are familiar with this production of the Yiddish Fiddler on the Roof that made it. And I think they are coming now to Los Angeles, so that's exciting that it's still going on. Okay. And there are lesser known Yiddish theaters like Rep, New Yiddish Rep. And this is a picture of a production of Waiting for Godot in Yiddish. So they do some interesting, more modern theater pieces. And there is Yiddish radio. There used to be Yiddish radio in Warsaw until 2010, but then they got bankrupt, sadly. So now two Yiddish radios that are still in existence is one in Boston and one in Paris. And I think we'll have to end soon, right? Because the time is running. But it goes on and on, the Yiddish podcasts and the other ways to preserve Yiddish in the TED Talks, in the contemporary world. And this is a little bit about our organization, Yiddishland.
Yes, please talk
yeah.
about that. May that be a good way to maybe segue into questions? Because I think everyone would love to hear about, and I know I want to hear about the founding of your organization. Some of us will recognize Elizabeth and Yael in the picture, who we partnered with JHSM. He came in and they gave a concert. So yes, please tell us about your organization. Is this a good slide to be on, or do I need to move down, or are we good?
You can be here. Yes, we're a secular organization. We used to be based in California, but the cost of living and rising crime and all kinds of problems persuaded us to move to Mexico. And it's a crazy move. We just, as I explained before, I'm sitting on the boxes full of Yiddish books because we just moved 2 days ago. But I think it's going to be a good environment for Yiddish because it's very safe. For instance, the synagogue, the local synagogue in La Paz, has no security. And it's a good indication that the place where you're settling is safe. And the most important thing in the world for Yiddish, that you will not be in any kind of danger. So we teach Yiddish online, we teach Yiddish in person, and we bring together scholars, artists, and everybody interested in Yiddish culture, Jewish people and non-Jewish people alike. So we also don't want a guard in front of the door. We would like everybody from the street to come to us and get Yiddishized, especially the children, because some spaces are only adult-based, and then it kind of gets lost. It's very important that the young generation is Yiddishized. Yeah. And we have an art gallery and a rare book collection that we're schlepping with us. So it's a lot to talk about, but we represent painters from Ukraine and from Israel and from Poland and from the US. And I think a lot of these painters spoke Yiddish, so it's interesting to learn about their biographies. Yeah, you can scroll down if you want, but it's a lot of details, what is in the collection and what it will be. We're trying to create a museum, so what will be in our future museum, right? And that was our space in San Diego when we had a physical space there. And while you're scrolling, I can respond I see some
Yeah, I
questions.
think there's a couple of questions in the so is this a good place for me to maybe stop sharing, I think?
Well, you can
Or
scroll
keep
down and
going. Okay.
there is a contact. So if people
Okay.
want to contact us,
Okay. Perfect.
the last slide, I think, has a contact information.
Okay.
Yes, and I can put my email in the chat in case anybody wants to reach out and
Sure.
ask other questions. This is my email. My name is Jana. So do Yiddish words survive in Polish? Yes. Czulent. Cymes. Cymes means basically something wonderful in Polish. It doesn't mean the dish, how you make your kids eat carrots, you add raisins, and then you make it all sweet. Cymes is something wonderful that we encounter in life. Chutzpah, there is a word chutzpah. You must have so much chutzpah, right? A lot of words, obviously. Just like in Yiddish, there are lots of Polish words. Polish has a lot of Yiddish words. Din teure, for instance, is in the slang of thieves, that if they get caught, they will go and they will have a din teure. So a lot of Yiddish words in Polish. Are there new Yiddish authors of fiction? Yes, especially poetry. There is a woman called Katrina Kuznitsova, who is a contemporary Yiddish poet, and the best way to reach out would be on Facebook. If you just click, Google Yiddish poetry, you'll find these authors. And I think we will do, well, if you want to be in touch, we have a project in our organization that has to do with Yiddish poetry contest. So if you Google around, you'll find it. It's gonna be happening soon. Yes, so everybody got the link in the chat to the presentation. And if you keep it in Google Slides, it's going to be shorter.
There you go.
Because we had guest talks all over the world, including Spain and Mexico. And then the whole idea is that we have 100 whatever slides, and then we hide the irrelevant ones.
Of course.
Today, how we showed it was a different way.
That's okay. Today was a new experience. That's no problem. Well, I learned so much. Thank you so much for sharing the knowledge that you had. I mean, of course, I had a teacup. Now I'm realizing about a teacup's worth of knowledge. So thank you so much. My family, I didn't grow up Jewish, but my family is from Alsace-Lorraine, and I have been to Colmar. I have been to those places. So knowing that also has a little bit of a crossover for me now in my Jewish world, that's really is amazing. So that's wonderful. So I have a couple questions, and then we can certainly open it up to the audience to be able to ask some questions questions as well. So I know that you've recently moved. I know you're a mom. So are you obviously you want encouraging your children to speak Spanish, Mexican Spanish now that you've
Yes,
moved
yes.
to Mexico, but have you also raised them to speak Yiddish as well?
Well, it's complicated in our household because I
Yeah, no
speak
kidding.
Polish and Yiddish, and I learned Spanish, and my husband speaks Russian and Hebrew. So our poor child,
What is that? Is
uh,
that a polyglot? Is that the right
yeah,
word?
well, she's kind of a polyglot, but she only absorbs swear words.
Oh, well, that's no good. That's
I
okay.
I learned swear words in Spanish from my child
Oh,
too.
well,
I think
that,
that's the number one that gets transmitted no matter what.
I love it.
But now exactly it's a problem because Yiddish got pushed out by Spanish, which has to be. So I'm waiting until she gets comfortable with Spanish, which I think we reached that point. And then starting in the fall, I would like to go back a little bit to Yiddish and to Polish.
Right, right. Oh, that's
But
amazing.
it's hard to handle all of them and it's hard to
Oh,
make a choice.
yeah,
But Yiddish is a priority because it's the language that really needs young speakers, like
right,
any speakers it can get, but especially the young ones, right?
right. So when you said you learned Yiddish when you were in Ann Arbor, right? That's where you started learning
Well,
it, or
I
you
learned
learned it
like
previously?
I went on to many summer courses and then I continued in Ann Arbor because I had a wonderful possibility to learn it. It was for advanced, already for advanced students, 3 times per week, every week. So it
Nice.
was a wonderful environment to learn. And I was very, very happy and fortunate, to be able to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to be partnering soon for a private tour, bus tour, but also a public bus tour. There are some students, they're probably classmates of yours potentially, um,
Uh-huh.
who are wanting to come over from Ann Arbor and experience part of Yiddish Detroit.
Detroit, amazing.
And be able to kind of pull in some. We have, of course, the Jewish history tours, but being able to also do a bus tour that focuses on although there isn't a lot left, but some of the pieces
Yeah,
that would have more of a Yiddish connection, some of the Yiddish theater pieces and things like that. So it'll be interesting to be able to grow on that. So
amazing.
I
Yeah.
would love to open it up to our wonderful participants this evening. I'm going to undo the spotlight real quick so we can all see each
Yeah.
other. So if you have a question and you'd like to unmute, I am happy to call upon you, or you can raise your hand or wave. I'd be happy to call upon you. She can answer any questions for you that you might have had as we were going through that wonderful presentation.
Well, I see a question also in the chat. What about the Yiddish theater in Warsaw? It's a
Sure.
very, very long history. That's why I chose to write my dissertation on it because I worked there as an assistant to the director
Mhm.
before COVID. And it was fascinating to watch these people do their best for the theater to survive
Mhm.
because a lot of them did not, right? And it's the theater with the longest history in the world because it was started in 1914 and it's still going on, the same institution. So the history is long. It survived the First World War, the Second World War, communism, and then the transition into capitalism. And right now, post-pandemic times are not easy either. So it's theater of survivors. And there was always a price to pay for that survival. So it's the topic of the dissertation. The issue is that it involves a lot of Soviet informers and things like that. And it's very dirty history because some of the families of these informers are still alive. So the question is to publish or not to publish because I might get in trouble.
Mm.
So maybe it has to wait a little bit.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
it's
Well,
a,
that
it's a very complicated topic.
it sounds complicated. It sounds very complicated. All right. So I see we have a couple hands up. Susie, I saw your hand first, and then Cindy, I'll come to you next. And then there's still a few more questions too that we'll pick up in the chat. So let's start with Susie first. Susie, go right ahead. I know you're unmuted.
I start my day by doing the crossword puzzles in the Free Press. And
Uh-huh.
more and more you see Yiddish words in the
Yes.
crossword puzzles now. which is fascinating because you never did that until a few years ago. And also, the Yiddish that I know, I learned because, like my generation, whose parents, who were American born but spoke Yiddish because their parents did, they spoke Yiddish when they didn't want us to know what they were
Well, of
saying.
course, of course.
So, of course, and so a lot of what I know is stuff you shouldn't say out loud. So, because that's what they were talking about.
Exactly. That's what you were eager to
Which is exactly what's
to learn.
happening
Yes.
with Jana's daughter right now, where she's learning the nasty words she's not supposed to be saying. So it continued on through the generation, Susie. All right,
Right.
Levi, I saw your hand, but Cindy, you go first, and then we'll go to Levi.
Thank you. This is really fascinating. I wanted to hear about this Yiddish poet and what language was she raised with and when did she learn Yiddish?
Oh, contemporary Yiddish poet. I know about her because she used to be a teacher for us, Katrina Kuznetsova. It's even hard for me to write her name. So hold on, I'm gonna go on Facebook and copy paste for you.
Thank you.
Yes, she is from Russia.
Are there translations of her work?
I don't think so. But this is her. I'm gonna copy the name. Yeah. And there are many others. If you write me an email, I can connect you with them. Why
I
not?
speak zero Yiddish. Well, I mean, I know a handful of words, but thank you. This was great.
Okay,
Cindy.
sure, you're welcome.
All right, Levi,
Yes.
I know you had a couple questions in the chat, so do you want to go ahead and pick, maybe a couple? I know you have some great comments too, so go ahead, Levi.
So Jana, I presume you're not born Jewish, correct?
I am but on my father's side, so it depends what you consider being Jewish.
It counts for us. It totally counts.
My father was Jewish, and my mom not Jewish, from what we know.
How old were you when they told you were Jewish?
Nobody told me. It was a crazy story. I was already studying Yiddish because it resonated with me, and I tried to look up some word that sounded like Russian word. So I pulled out some old dictionary. I happened to be at my parents' house, and a letter fell out, and it was written in Yiddish. So it was confusing to me. What is a Yiddish letter doing in our non-Yiddish household? And it turned out it was not such a Goyish household after all. But I was already in my 20s.
So how were you received by your contemporaries when you revealed you were Jewish?
Well, in Poland, we didn't have a problem. My father was very worried. He said, "Don't come out of the closet because it's scary and it's dangerous." And I laughed at him because when I was studying Yiddish in Poland, we had this Jewish Renaissance, and I never experienced any anti-Semitism there because that was the good time, good. I was just fortunate. I didn't understand because I was too young that it can shift any second. And not only in Poland, but in any country. You never know when there'll be good times for the Jewish people or bad times for the Jewish people. And he was right to be in the closet. I understand now, his approach, of course. But back then I just went for it. And as you see now, I'm also very publicly Jewish. Everybody knows that I'm Jewish. If you run a Yiddish organization, you cannot hide, right? So it is risky, but
Well, your name sounds Polish, but is it
yes.
a Jewish name?
My Jewish name is Alma.
No, your last name.
Oh, well, that was changed at some point. My father changed his name into this Mazurkiewicz, and I have no idea what the original name was. Yeah, so I have no clue. But my husband's name is Edward, and he is from Ukraine, so it's a similar story,
So our name in Old Country was Kudlarski, and now it's
Now it's me. There you go. So all these stories,
Your family really chose the American name, Levi. I mean, talk about trying to fly under the radar. My goodness.
Right.
So Sherry has a question in the chat. Are there new Yiddish authors of fiction anywhere? And what are some of these books? Do you have any suggestions for her?
Right. So that's what I was mentioning, the Yiddish poetry.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah, no. And because we will be publishing some, I'm gonna give a link to our website also.
And I can also make sure that I put the link to you guys' website when I
misspelled it.
send the recording out. That's no problem.
Okay, okay.
So I can help with that too.
Thank you.
Of course, of course.
Because it would be nice to promote some Yiddish poetry. We'll see how many readers we get.
Well, that's all right. Every little bit
Yes.
helps, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, Levi, you have another question or comment? Go ahead and unmute. You're muted though. You'll have to unmute yourself. Oops.
So I want to share with you that I came up with 125 Yiddish words that I knew, and I came from a non-Yiddish speaking family, but just from the neighborhood and friends. And I circulated it, and I thought it was a great exercise to, get interest and keep Yiddish alive. And
Yeah.
I want to share that with you. And
Amazing.
maybe you can do something with that. And my son wrote an article about Yiddish today in the Washington Post. And
really?
Yeah. And my wife is here and she can talk about that.
Perfect. And where do you live? Because I see some palm trees, but I'm not sure.
Oh, they're here in Michigan. They're just cheating right now. They're totally here in Michigan.
So I just say that like my most recent communication with this is through my son's, article and interest in this and investigation into it. Have you read the article in the Washington Post about?
What was the title? Was it about there was one about
I'll tell you what it was in a minute.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's the one because we were featured in one of those articles.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I asked him actually if he had talked to you about this article.
It was with a Yiddish flag. Like
I'm gonna find out.
If there was a flag to be created for Yiddish, what would it feature?
Let me
There was one of the articles that I came across.
Renaissance of Yiddish and study in the universities.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Times, the forward, you get it online. She always has a Yiddish word of the day.
Yes, it's pretty brilliant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think to have such a program for kids would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yiddish on the beach, Yiddish on the farm, and it would help because that's my biggest regret. There is not much material for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's very disappointing that the online language chose to do this crazy mashup. You think, I do some early education for kids learning Hebrew mainly for their bar and bat mitzvahs. And we do, and they have a thing where you can actually change it so that it's more of an Israeli pronunciation versus more of an American pronunciation. You would think they could have just had it, choose your dialect, as it were, and pronunciation, as opposed to try and make this crazy mashup. You're going to have these people who, think they're learning and then they're kind of have this wonky thing that they're trying to put together. That's going to be a little confusing.
Yes, unfortunately.
It's too bad they did that.
I know.
Did that.
Well, young people are full of hopes and dreams.
Yes,
and
that's true. At least they tried. At least they tried. Were you able to find the article?
I'm looking.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, have Levi can email it to me and then, or Susie, did you find it?
No, I didn't. I was just saying that if you have a flag, you got to put a matzo ball in the right-hand corner of the flag. That's all.
Yes.
There we go. I love it. I love it. If Levi wants to email me the link, I'd be happy to send it out whenever, if you find it. No problem, Levi. When you find it, just send me the link and then I can send it on.
Okay, good. I think you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. All right. Yes, there's a question. I know you're not 5782, but feel free to go ahead and unmute. You're going to have to unmute real quick. So I'll ask you to unmute and then you can unmute. And I think we should be able to hear you shortly. Maybe. Not quite yet. Here, try one more time. I wish I could. They took away the ability to
Yeah, which is
unmute
a
people,
shame. It's
which
a
I
shame.
understand they did it for privacy purposes, but man, is it a pain in the neck someday.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just technology. It's nothing you can do.
Yeah, it doesn't want to unmute. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't hear you. Let's see. But if you want to put it in the chat, you can. Or I don't know why it won't let you unmute. That's weird because I know that you were unmuted earlier when I was talking to you. But did it give you a note yet? Yeah, I don't think I can read your lips well enough. I haven't practiced enough. I'm sorry. All right. Well, I tell you what, we'll get you the email address, and then you can maybe email me or call me. Maybe call me on the phone tomorrow and I can get you the question. So I'm sorry. I wish we could hear you. I'm sure you have an excellent point to make, but
I just put my phone number in a chat to you. If you want to call me, I can just put you on speakerphone.
Oh, that's a good idea. Why don't you call Cindy and she can put you on speakerphone since it won't unmute. Do you have your telephone?
Yeah.
Cindy, that was a lovely idea.
I'm not putting my phone number in the whole chat.
Yes, of course. So Cindy put her phone number for you in the chat. So if you can find that, put it in the private chat for you, and then you can call. Can you find it? You know what? Why don't you do me if you can't find the chat? Here, call me. Ready? 812. We'll make this work one way or another. 6679 6773. Waiting. Go through. Should be 812-679-6773. Sure. 812-679-6773. It doesn't want to work. Oh, bummer. All right. Well, I tell you what, we will get you a question. We'll figure it out. I know. Oh, I wish we could figure it out. It's all right. You're doing really good with pantomime, but I'm not very good at it. So. All right, my dears. Well, thank you all so much. Yes, Levi, did you find it?
No, I didn't find it, but I'd like Jana to talk about the crack.
What's your son's name?
I got unmuted.
Oh, you did it! Oh, you did it! All right, hold on just a second, Levi. All right, first of all, I know your name's not 5782.
Betsy Winkleman.
Of course.
Okay.
So it's good to have you. All right, yay, you did it. Good job. Okay.
Okay. First of all, a couple of things. I was trying to pantomime a Zochenweh. Okay.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to lip read that at all.
Because that's what the situation reminded me of. My son and daughter-in-law and grandson lived for many years in Montreal. They have a very active Yiddish theater.
Yes.
Yes, not only for adults, but they call it the YAAANA, I think, which was the youth theater. And
wonderful.
And his daughter-in-law is fluent in Polish. She spent time learning there. And she taught in one of the preschools there. And from the time, and Stephen, my son, they both speak Yiddish and Hebrew. And so our grandson heard all those languages as growing up. So he was his mother is a chazan, and so it's a very big stage presence. And his father is very outgoing. And so he was a star of the Yiddish theater at that time. And so every time they needed the kid in the adults program, there was Benny.
Perfect.
until he got to be a teenager.
And then what happened?
Well, he's now a very accomplished jazz musician, still at McGill, but studying. And he has my uncle, Susie, you'll remember, Sam Burnett, my uncle who was a band leader here in Detroit. He taught in public school, but he did all the weddings and stuff at night, along with the other group, the good ones we all remember. And he gave his playbook to my daughter-in-law, the Chazan. Now our grandson has it. And at McGill, because my daughter-in-law is in the music world, she had a klezmer authority look at it and couldn't figure out why he didn't see the footprint of whichever group, which klezmer group was, which cult was this, which rebbe, which city, because he said in New York you can tell which ones. And so we learned. My uncle, we learned from my cousin, that my uncle would, if a klezmer band came to town and they were all Hasidic, he'd write it down. He'd go listen to them and he'd write it down. So his is a fusion.
The type in the,
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad you were able to get unmuted. Yeah, Levi, go ahead.
So, Jana, can you talk about the Krakow Jewish Festival, please?
Oh, yes. So when I was growing up, Krakow Jewish Festival was a new thing. And it was not only Jewish festival, a sign of Jewish Renaissance coming, but also a sign of the end of communism. So for us, it was a big deal, a big movement. And because of the timing, a lot of young people got involved and it became a very big thing. But now it's more commercial, I would say. Now it's more fancy. It's like what happened to Woodstock, I think, or other music festivals. Now it's fancy and you sit down and buy your very expensive ticket, and it's still wonderful and very high quality of entertainment. But the atmosphere of the festival has changed a lot. So from this young people's movement, the very fringy and hip, it became very established. I think that's what happens, it either dies out or it becomes established and it changes its character, right? So it's still, it's wonderful. It's so many people attend. It's so popular and it elevates your spirit.
About what year did, if I may ask?
I think it was in the
90s,
I think, something like that. Like any Jewish anything in Poland started to be more visible in the 90s. During communism, we had also a Jewish culture, but different. So Yiddish was promoted as a secular language of Jewish people. But Hebrew was put down and nobody was interested in it. So the religious part was gone, the secular part was out. And then it flipped and Yiddish was kind of forgotten for a little bit. And then the religious life started to grow more. And now, hopefully, we're at this point that we have Hebrew and we have Yiddish and we have Ladino. Actually, in my organization, we really want to promote Ladino also as a language that is worth studying, but it's so hard to find a teacher. And I was desperate trying and everybody was too busy or too far away or whatnot. And I found a teacher at my home university in Wrocław who now teaches for us. So the world is very small and I think we have to bring it all together. Not argue which one is the national language of the people, which one is important, which one is not important. Is it for the fancy folks? Is it for the poor folks? Is it for the young? Is it for the old? Yiddish is for all. And Jewish culture, and cultures and Jewish languages are for all. We should promote each other and help each other instead of trying to stab our backs, and think, oh, this Yiddish is wrong and this is wrong. I see it all the time on Facebook, how Like people who speak Ladino are upset if I put something about Yiddish, and people who speak Yiddish are upset if I put something in Ladino. We have too many fights going on in our community. I think we should absorb it all and be happy it's still around, you know?
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And I want to thank Jana so much for presenting. It was so informative and I really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad that we were able to have this program.
Yes,
We were
thanks
able
to
to
you.
work through, oh no, not a problem. We were able to work through some technical challenges, which we were able to make happen. But as she mentioned, she shared with us her deck. So I will make sure that when I mail out, I'll mail out to everyone the recording so you can go back and look at it. You can also then, you can go through the slides as well. She was so gracious to share them with us. You can take your time to do that. And then I will include her email address she's graciously given us so that if you want to have any direct correspondence or support the organization, Jana, you are welcome to do so as well. But we thank you all so much for being with us this evening. As usual, it was a small but, well, not usual, it's a small but mighty crowd tonight. But we really appreciate everybody's enthusiastic participation and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
you.
evening. And
Schönen Dank.
yes,
Schönen Dank.
absolutely. A Shanam Dunk to Al.
Schönen Dank.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we will hope to see you soon at one of our programs.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.